The observer loop. It's the reason you feel like you've changed, yet nothing around you has. What if every decision you've ever made, every relationship you've walked into, every pattern you thought you broke, was just the same illusion, wearing a new disguise? You tell yourself you're growing, you read the books, you go to therapy, you meditate, you journal, and still, the same emotional scenery greets you again and again, just different faces, different details, same frequency. That's the observer loop, a hidden mechanism of the mind and of your energy field that traps you in familiar realities while letting you believe you've evolved. It's not just psychological, it's quantum, it's karmic, it's neurological. And the worst part? The more conscious you become, the more subtle the trap gets. Joe Dispenza calls it the rehearsal of emotion, when neural patterns keep firing, even when your intentions change. Edgar Cayce described it long before neuroscience gave it a name: soul patterns repeating themselves across lifetimes, disguised as new choices. This loop doesn't just live in your mind, it lives in your body, in the cells that crave the same chemical emotional hit. Even when you say, "I'm done," your body might be done surviving, but your subconscious is still looking for what's familiar. And if you're here now, something inside you is tired of repeating, tired of the illusion. Ready to see what's really behind the veil? If this speaks to you, if this truth feels uncomfortably accurate, subscribe now and walk with me through this. Because we're about to uncover the invisible reason your breakthroughs never seem to last. And once you see it, you won't be able to unsee it. In the next part, we're going to look straight into the mechanism behind this loop, the neural, chemical, and emotional replay button that keeps you circling the same outcomes. Even when you swear you've moved on, what you're about to learn may shift how you see every choice you've ever made. The invisible replay button in your mind. There's something most people never realize. The past doesn't repeat because it's stronger than you. It repeats because your body is addicted to it. You think you're stuck because of fear. But what if you're stuck because your nervous system craves the emotional cocktail of the familiar? Not just familiar situations, familiar emotions. The dull ache of disappointment, the subtle buzz of anxiety, that slow drip of never being quite enough, not because you want those feelings, but because you've memorized them, lived them, and now your brain fires them like default code. Let me explain. Every emotion is a chemical, every thought has a neural pathway, and every repeated experience becomes a groove, like a track your body runs on automatically. This is the Hebbian law. Neurons that fire together wire together. And once wired, they run, until something interrupts the loop. But here's the thing most people miss. It's not just mental, it's physical. The body gets hooked on the emotion. You say, "I'm done with this pain," but your system still expects it, like a familiar rhythm. It doesn't care if it hurts, it cares if it knows how to survive it. And so the loop plays again. You think you're choosing differently. But you're often just choosing what matches the chemistry your body already knows how to process. Pause for a moment. Feel that. Is your chest tight right now? Is your jaw clenched? Is your breath shallow? Those aren't just signs of stress. They're signals, traces of every emotion you never fully processed, still trying to complete their cycle. Let me give you an image. Imagine someone who grew up walking barefoot on broken glass. One day, they step on soft grass, and they flinch. Not because it hurts, but because their body doesn't trust safety. Their nervous system only knows sharp edges, so peace feels wrong. This is why the new doesn't stick, because your system doesn't recognize peace as home, not yet. But what if the most powerful truth was hiding where you never thought to look? Here's the beginning of the shift. Name the loop. Witness it, without guilt, without urgency, just recognition. When you see the loop, it begins to loosen. Awareness breaks repetition. Not by force, but by presence. And if something inside you is softening right now, if you're feeling seen, leave a mark in the comments. What single word captures what this stirred in you? Maybe it's liberation, maybe it's truth, maybe it's readiness. Choose the one that resonates and share it. Sometimes just one word can be a spell that opens the door. In the next section, we go deeper into the quantum mirror of all this, the observer effect. You'll learn how your very act of watching shapes your reality, and why staying stuck in observation mode keeps the illusion alive, no matter how much you think you've awakened. Quantum collapse and the role of the observer. There's a law in quantum physics that changes everything. The observer affects the outcome. Particles don't even become particles until someone observes them. They exist as probability waves, infinite possibilities, until attention collapses them into a single reality. But what if your attention isn't neutral? What if every time you try to change, you're actually collapsing the same version of reality over and over again because your emotional frequency hasn't shifted? You're watching your life unfold, but you're watching it through a filter, and that filter, it's made of memory, of emotion, of fear, of patterns so old they no longer feel like choices. They just feel like life. Let me bring this into something real. Her name is Elisa. 52 years old, works in HR, lives in a quiet neighborhood just outside Phoenix, grown kids, a life that, on paper, looks stable. But every morning, she wakes up with a knot in her stomach. Not terror, not panic, just that soft tension that never leaves, like something is slightly off. Elisa's been divorced for 8 years, and for most of that time she hasn't really dated. But recently someone new entered her life, kind, charismatic, emotionally present. The kind of man she'd always hoped for, and that's when the loop kicked in. She found herself overthinking texts, reading too much into silence, holding back her truth, just a little, accommodating, just slightly more than she wanted to. Not because he asked her to, but because her body remembered what it meant to be abandoned. She thought she was observing reality clearly, but really, she was watching through the lens of her past. Elisa didn't sabotage the connection. She didn't mess it up. She just observed the new as if it were the old, and so the frequency collapsed. He pulled away. She retreated, and the loop continued. New face, same story. You've seen it before. You just didn't know how to read it. This is the trap of the observer. When your lens is distorted by old emotion, even your presence can recreate the past. And here's the most important part. You can't change the loop by just thinking new thoughts, because the field doesn't respond to thoughts. It responds to emotion, to frequency, to vibration. This is where we shift from passive to active, from witness to creator. Because if your presence can collapse a possibility, imagine what happens when that presence is infused with a new emotional signal. We'll explore now how karmic patterns disguise themselves as fresh starts. You'll discover why the moment something feels too good to be true, your body might unconsciously be dragging you back into what's familiar, even if it hurts. Karmic echoes, disguised as new beginnings. You've said it before, this time it feels different, and maybe it did, for a moment. A new job, a new partner, a new spiritual path. But within weeks, the old emotions seep back in. The same anxieties, the same dynamics, the same unspoken grief. How? Because karmic patterns don't always scream. Sometimes they whisper. They hide inside the energy of your yes. They wear the mask of opportunity, but carry the vibration of repetition. And if you don't slow down, you won't notice the echo. Let me explain. Karma isn't punishment, it's repetition. Not from a past life necessarily, but from this one. Every time you bypass a lesson, it loops back. Every time you abandon yourself to belong, a new character shows up to mirror that abandonment, until you notice, until you choose differently, not from willpower, but from embodiment. Edgar Cayce described it as soul memory. When your body remembers experiences your mind has forgotten and recreates them to offer you another chance. So the same type of boss appears, just with a different face. The same kind of emotional hunger, the same dynamic of silence, withdrawal, appeasement. You call it fate, but really it's a karmic echo trying to be heard. Here's what's even deeper. When something feels too easy, too safe, too peaceful, your body might reject it. Not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't match your karmic imprint. It doesn't align with the emotional landscape you're used to navigating. So you run, or you numb, or you sabotage. Not because you're broken, but because your nervous system is simply trying to return you to what it knows. Pause now. Breathe. Let this land. The moment you feel the urge to repeat, to reenact, to retreat, that is the karmic fork in the road. Not the big decision, the subtle one. That 1 second of awareness when you say, I've been here before and this time, I won't collapse the same scene. Let that moment become your ritual. Because patterns don't break through effort. They dissolve through presence, through vibration, through alignment. Now we're going into the core of that alignment, your body's addiction to the known. We'll uncover why peace feels dangerous and chaos feels like home, even when all you want is rest. The comfort of the known, your hidden addiction. It sounds strange, doesn't it? That what you want the most, peace, clarity, alignment, is often the very thing your body resists. You've done the healing work, you've named the pattern, you've walked away from what no longer serves, and yet when things get quiet, you flinch. You wait for the other shoe to drop. You search for the edge in the softness. You micromanage stillness, as if silence itself is suspicious. Why? Because chaos, pain, urgency, they became your baseline. They're not what you want, but they're what you know. And your nervous system is designed to survive, not to evolve. That's why rest feels like danger, why presence feels like exposure, why love, when it finally arrives, feels uncomfortable. Here's the truth most people avoid. Until your body learns to feel safe in the unfamiliar, you will always recreate the known. Because healing isn't just releasing the past, it's retraining your system to receive what you've never experienced before. Let me give you a real image. Imagine you've lived your whole life bracing for winter. Suddenly you wake up in spring, birdsong, warmth, abundance, but your body is still holding itself like it's in a blizzard. Muscles tense, guard up, energy closed. That's how most people meet peace. They meet it with suspicion, with armor, with grief. Because to receive peace means letting go of the identity built around surviving without it. Pause now. Breathe, not with your mind, with your ribcage, with your gut, with your shoulders. You're safe here, not because nothing bad will happen, but because you are no longer collapsing into the same version of yourself when it does. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for staying, for softening, for witnessing yourself. And if something in you is beginning to shift, we'd love to hear from you. Take a moment. In the comments, tell us, have you ever felt like peace made you flinch? Like stillness felt foreign? Your words might help someone else feel less alone in their silent battle. And if this path resonates with you, subscribe. You're not just watching, you're remembering, and we're walking this together. Stay with me. Because next, we step into the alchemy of transformation, where choice meets biology, where we stop observing and start becoming, breaking the observer's spell. There comes a moment, not always dramatic, often quiet, when watching your life unfold becomes unbearable, not because it's painful, but because you realize you've been watching for too long, tracking your triggers, naming your wounds, repeating insights, mapping the terrain, but still standing in the same field. That's the observer's spell, mistaking awareness for transformation. Awareness starts the shift, but embodiment finishes it. You can't just witness your old patterns and expect them to dissolve. You have to disrupt them with frequency, with movement, with new signals. Here's the process. First, emotion, not any emotion, elevated emotion, gratitude, compassion, joy, not forced, not faked, felt. Joe Dispenza teaches that elevated emotion combined with clear intention rewires the brain and sends a new electromagnetic signature into the field, because emotion is the carrier wave. The message, the power source. Second, action, but not massive action, micro action. Tiny, specific, symbolic steps that tell your nervous system, this is safe now. Let me give you an example. If your old loop is silence, say one true sentence out loud. If your old loop is people-pleasing, say no once, gently. If your old loop is self-abandonment, take 5 minutes today just to ask, what do I need? The loop doesn't break with force, it breaks with consistency. With conscious interruption, with new evidence. Third, presence. This is the hardest part. Not racing to fix, not checking if it worked. Just being in the new frequency long enough for your body to believe it. Because the nervous system doesn't learn through logic. It learns through repetition, through resonance, through experience. You don't become the new version by waiting to feel ready. You become it by showing up as it, before the mind agrees. That's the rupture. That's the rewiring. And that's where the loop begins to fade. Now we move to the mirror, the ultimate feedback mechanism. You'll see how reality reflects your internal landscape, not to punish you, but to wake you up. The mirror trick. What reality is trying to tell you. Life speaks in mirrors, but most of us spend years trying to fix the reflection, instead of changing the frequency that casts it. Every argument, every delay, every ache, not punishment, not random. Feedback. You think you're dealing with circumstances, but you're really navigating your own field, projected onto people, places, patterns. This is the law of reflection, and it's not metaphorical, it's vibrational. Let me explain. Everything you experience externally is encoded with the vibration you hold internally, even if unconsciously. That's why two people in the same situation will have radically different experiences, because the field doesn't respond to facts. It responds to frequency. Imagine walking into a room after a bad day. You barely say a word, but someone feels it. The air shifts. That's resonance. That's energy. That's transmission. Now take that same principle and apply it to your entire life, your finances, your relationships, your body. They're not separate, they're mirrors, translating your unconscious into matter, not to blame you, to awaken you. Because here's the key, what triggers you isn't trying to hurt you, it's trying to show you what's unhealed. What repeats isn't failure, it's feedback, a loop asking to be noticed. Let me give you a tool. Start keeping what I call a symbolic journal. Not just what happened today, but what pattern repeated. What energy did I walk in with? What mirror did life hold up to me? And what was it showing? Do this gently, with no judgment, only curiosity. Because the moment you shift from, why is this happening to me, to, what is this reflecting from me, your entire field starts to reorganize. Here's something powerful to remember. The universe doesn't respond to words. It responds to signals. And your signal is shaped by how you feel about yourself when no one's watching. Not what you affirm, what you embody. And when the mirror reflects something tender, something hard, something familiar, pause, breathe. Ask, what part of me does this mirror want me to reclaim? Because nothing is more radical than refusing to collapse into the old version of you when life invites you to repeat. And now, we prepare for something sacred. In the next chapter, I'll guide you through a ritual, not just to understand the loop, but to exit it energetically, physically, emotionally. We'll use visualization, breath, and symbolic closure so that your body, not just your mind, knows the cycle is complete. A ritual to exit the loop. You've understood the loop. You've seen how it forms, felt where it lives in your body, heard how it echoes through your choices. Now, it's time to step out, not just in thought, but in vibration, in movement, in ritual. Because some cycles don't end with answers, they end with presence. So here's the ritual. You don't need candles or crystals or perfect posture, just breath, intention, and willingness. Close your eyes, not yet physically, but inwardly. Turn your gaze inside. Feel your breath enter your nose, move down into your lungs, expand your ribcage. Let the exhale be slower than the inhale. This tells your nervous system, it's safe now. Now, bring to mind a scene, one that repeats, a dynamic, a person, a sensation, not the story, just the pattern. Let it rise without judgment. Let it hover like mist. Now whisper to it, silently or aloud, I see you. I survived you, but I no longer need you to stay safe. Feel that echo. Not in your head, in your body. Where is it tight? Where does it pull? Now breathe into that space. Imagine light, golden, soft, non-aggressive, filling that place. Not forcing anything out, just replacing the need to protect. And now, the final act. Bring your hands together. Feel the heat, the pressure. Let your palms hold the memory, and then release. Open your hands gently, symbolically, letting the old identity fall through your fingers. You don't need to understand it fully. Your body knows, it heard you, and now the loop ends here. Stay with this feeling, because from this place new patterns form, not from fear but from choice, not from trauma but from truth. And the loop, it becomes a teacher, not a trap. Now we move to integration, the final closing, a space to honor what shifted, to bring it full circle, and to open the next portal in your evolution. This isn't the end, it's a threshold. You didn't just watch a video, you crossed a field. You walked through memory, you met yourself, somewhere you used to avoid, and maybe for the first time, you didn't flinch. You felt it, you paused, you listened, not just with your ears, with your nervous system, with your breath, with your soul. And that is a sacred thing, because the loop doesn't end with insight, it ends with integration. And you, being here, this far, this present, are proof. You're ready. You're no longer collapsing the same identity. You're becoming someone who chooses what's next, not just reacts to what returns. That's not small, that's alchemy. So thank you. Thank you for your energy, your presence, for staying when it got uncomfortable, for letting this message move through you. And now, we'd love to hear from you. What resonated? What landed? Tell us in the comments, even if it's just one word. Maybe it's release. Maybe it's sovereignty. Maybe it's clarity. Let your voice be part of this field. Let someone else feel less alone, because you chose to speak, and if this felt like home, you're already part of something, a community, a frequency, a remembrance. Subscribe now, not just to follow, but to walk with us. And don't stop here. The next video is waiting, one that completes this shift. You were chosen to open this portal. Don't miss this opportunity. It's more than a title, it's a key. Watch it next and feel the rest of this activation unfold. You're not at the mercy of the external world. You are the field that transforms what vibrates around you. Let that truth settle in your bones, because the new loop, it begins now.